The Hollywood Hills vampires. An LSD trip report. I had gone to California to visit a friend. While there, she told me we were going to this party around 10:30, and it was gonna be a blast because it included all the people she had made friends with at Burning Man. I had never been to Burning Man, so I was excited to meet everyone. We get to the party and my friend pops a roll, but I didn't want anything. I wasn't feeling the vibe, and I didn't know anyone there enough to feel comfortable rolling with them. About an hour into the party, my friend tells me she can get me some LSD if I want. I have tripped a lot back in my day, so I was like, okay, sure. At least on LSD with strangers, I wouldn't be begging to be massaged and I could hold my ground better. She takes me to this guy that seemed to remind me of Gandalf. He was a very interesting-looking older gentleman with a fancy fedora and a leather jacket. He looked like a modern Gandalf. The only thing he had was Sweetie's candy, dosed. He took one look at me and probably saw I was skinny and petite and said, "You don't do more than half. You understand?" And I said, "Yeah, okay." And I remember he said something like, "No, I'm not kidding. This is super powerful. Just take half." I grabbed the candy, broke it in half in front of him, then stuffed the rest in my pocket. I chewed the candy and went to walk around. About 45 minutes later, I still didn't feel anything, so I decided to pop the other half in. I hate that I am so impatient sometimes. Right after I took the rest, the whole thing kicked in at once like a slap in the face. At first it was really interesting. I spoke to an autistic guy on the roof, not a hallucination, and we played chess on a life-size board, I think. We had a long conversation about things I don't remember. I just remember the conversation was really deep and interesting. I left the roof and went to find my friend. She was on the back porch talking to some girl who sounded like a gossip. When I looked at her mouth in the light, it looked like black-green sludge was dribbling out. I could see her teeth were all black and gross. I pulled my friend aside and asked her what the black-green sludge was, and she looked at me like I had told her the weirdest thing ever and asked, "Who?" I pointed inconspicuously to the girl. My friend laughed and said I was just tripping and she didn't have any black sludge. Months later, I found out that girl was a huge shit talker, so I wasn't that far off. Next, I started noticing that if I really concentrated, I could see people's complete soul timeline. Since the inception of the creation of their soul to now. I could see some people were foxes before and others were horses before. Of course, it helps that these people were from Burning Man and some of them were wearing fox tails and horse tails, so this is why I was probably seeing this, but it was a fun hallucination guessing all the animals nonetheless. I got bored of being outside in the patio, and I went inside, and at first it was pretty cool. Some dude came up to me and had a green jacket talking to me, and he had no shirt underneath, and I could swear that he was an elf. I felt like if I was in the middle of Lord of the Rings. Everybody had some sort of ties to either elves, fairies, foxes, deer, horses, or wizards. The old man had come back around, and he was straight up Gandalf now. At this point, there was no doubt in my mind who this man represented. He eyed me and I smiled and waved. He left soon after. I have never been an LOTR fan. That's what makes this so funny. You could tell he really cares about the substances he gives people, and he feels personally responsible for having given that to me that night. I felt kind of safe because I knew he wouldn't have given me something bad. But I didn't heed his warning. I end up in the bathroom because I had my monthly female issue. I will leave it at that. I'm sure everybody understands. This will make sense later, which is why I am including it in the story. If not, I would spare you the extra details. I go to the mirror and I remember looking at myself and thinking, wow, I am a queen. I am an Egyptian queen. And I could see myself, and I was glowing an aura like an opalescent rainbow. It was beautiful, but this is where the good part ends. Now begins the weirdness. I leave the bathroom and the music in the living room is being played on a huge music system, and a DJ is playing really crazy deep dark house, and it kept saying, "You can't touch me," or something to that effect. They had this red light on and everyone was dancing. It was so hot and everyone was rolling and sweating. It was suffocating me. I tried to dance, but suddenly I freaked out. I felt like I was in hell. The song suddenly peaked, and the person screamed that phrase I can't remember now, and I panicked. Somehow I tied it into the fact that I was at a Burning Man party, and it all came together. These people were demons, and I was dancing with demons in hell. I had to leave. I stepped outside the side door and the air was cool, and whereas before there was a hellish red light here, there was cool air and a blue light. Is it just me, or does the universe just somehow always make these weird things happen when you're on LSD on purpose to freak you out? I was now transporting to the gates of heaven. To my left there were stairs which I took to be the stairway to heaven. Thanks Led Zeppelin. On my right sat a few chairs. I knew then and there I had reached heaven, and I had to wait on those chairs for my relatives. I sat down to wait, and it occurred to me I was 3,000 miles away, and there's no way in hell anyone I know was going to come here. This wasn't heaven. I was tripping. I tried to make sense of the trip in my head and where I had just been going. I just knew I liked the outside cool air. People came outside and saw me, and soon I had a crowd gathering. This annoyed me, but everyone was being very thoughtful and respectful towards me. One girl I learned later is a firefighter in a deer tail, tried to help me breathe because she said I was hyperventilating. I thanked her and tried to pretend to breathe slower. Some other girl came outside, and this is what I mean about the bizarre coincidences. So one girl comes outside and said, "You are the queen bee. We are here for you." I had no clue what that meant, but I knew it had to do with me being a queen, or so I thought. She probably meant that anything I needed she would be there for me, but I was on a trip so I didn't get it. So then my friend comes out, and she usually has red hair since I have known her, but for some reason she was on some black hair kick, and on this day she looked like a dark entity to me. I didn't say anything, but in my head I started questioning our friendship and everything I had known of her, and I started wondering if she had lured me here. Then this guy comes out talking to some girl who was making the strangest faces and talking really weird. My friend told me later she was just on alcohol, but she just looked distorted and broken somehow. They are talking and she asks him loudly for everyone to hear, "Who is the prettiest here?" He guy, the one that had been talking me up before, looks straight at me and points at me and says in the most drama school manner I have ever seen, "Why, the PUISD, of course." My friend later confirmed this was true, but was so confused why this was so weird. She said he liked me. To me, this meant what I had suspected all along. This was a nest of vampires, and I had been lured here on the full moon on MY period, so they could suck my blood, because I am an O negative and I have good blood. I got up and ran out of the house. Coincidentally, again, there were gargoyles in front of this house. I can't even make this shit up. Do you see how crazy this all is? It's almost planned. I can't even be upset at my own conclusions looking back. I walked out very intent on walking home until I remembered, fuck, I am 3,000 miles away. I kept trying to get my head to think straight. I must have looked insane. I was hunched over by bushes in the street. When people came by, I would pretend to walk around, but I would go back to sitting on the curb or hiding in bushes, depending on the people that came out of the party. Some people asked if I was all right, and I said yes, fine. Just go. At this point, I wanted this trip to end so badly, but I didn't know how to get out of it. My next bright idea was that if I waited until the sun came up, the vampires would lose their power and their plan would be foiled. So I waited and waited. I waited until I couldn't wait anymore. I was cold, I wanted a shower, and I wanted a bed. I had now been tripping about 7-9 hours, and I was still hallucinating, seeing random colorful patterns everywhere and not thinking straight, but at least the worst was over. The light had started to come up over the horizon, and I knew it was my chance to get the address for my friend's house, so I ran inside thinking I was going to have to fight off vampires, but no, everyone was just relaxing and coming down off their rolls. I found my friend and finally convinced her to come home because she definitely didn't want to. I was like, give me the address or come with me, but I'm leaving. She didn't get why I was being so weird, but she finally agreed and we walked out, and as I passed the gargoyles, I felt I had won against the vampires. In my mind, it had all come together. The fact I am O negative, I had my period, it was the full moon and the comment about my purity. That comment was the last straw because I thought for sure it meant they could smell my blood type. It was so weird. I will admit, looking back, it is one of the most interesting and funny trips I have ever had. I was able to keep semi-control because I had already experienced tripping at least 30 other times when I was younger. I have come to understand myself on trips, and yet it was a lot harder than normal to keep rain on my head, because it was a higher dose than I had ever taken, apart from the flying pyramids, but that is a whole other insane story and almost 20 years before, so I digress. It can't really compare. I was already way older here, with years of meditation under my belt and years of experience. But I suspect if I would not have had this advantage, I could have had a break in my sanity. It was really too strong for my body size. At such a high dose, I could not gather my thoughts enough to think rationally and realize vampires just didn't exist. And the gods of LSD really do love messing with me and setting up all the domino pieces so perfectly to then watch me come tumbling through. I mean the queen bee. After I had thought that in the bathroom, then the lights, the song, the gargles, the fact I am O negative. I mean it was so well laid out. So bravo, universe. You fooled my dumb ass again. Bravo. Slow clap, I confirmed with my friend, and everything I had heard was accurate. She just couldn't understand what I had taken such offense to. I did tell her later everything I had thought about her, so I had to apologize for thinking she was a demon, but she is great, and she laughed. Then I took a shower when I got home. The last little bits of patterns came through the tiles in the bathroom, and they breathed and danced. I tried to sleep, but the patterns in my eyes wouldn't let me. Or so I thought. I woke up 8-9 hours later perfectly fine. This stuff was clean, clean, clean. I will give it that. Be safe out there, and remember to always question all your weird thoughts when tripping. And never ever take the other half. Just don't be impatient. Give it time to settle in first at least.